Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MakerDAO Scientific Governance and Risk Meeting, number 144, taking place on Thursday, June 3rd at 1700 UTC. My name is Long for Wisdom. I'm the governance facilitator at MakerDAO. I chair these meetings. As usual, we've got a bit of an agenda to get through. We've got our usual weekly updates. We've got a couple of other segments as well. This week, we're going to have a presentation from Soren Peter of the DAI Foundation. And we're going to have some ventures present the monthly financials for May. At least we will if we have time. We should do. So yeah, usual sort of preamble applies. If you have comments or questions, please do share and speak up. We like answering questions, generally speaking. So yeah, I guess with that, I'll get started with an update on governance. Let's see. So in the last week, we passed last week's executive vote, which did a couple of good things. It moved the Uniswap LP token vaults to the Liquidations 2.0 system, which is great. We whitelisted B protocol on the WBTC USD oracles. We increased the flat kick incentive, also known as TIP, from 0 DAI to 300 DAI. And we increased the PSM USDCA debt ceiling from 2 billion to 3 billion, which I know is of mixed excitement to various people, but at least we can keep the DAI peg. Let's see, last week's polls, we had a poll to reduce the PSM USDCA fee out parameter, also known as TOUT or TOUT. That was successful, so that will be included in this week's executive votes tomorrow. The polls to onboard the SushiSwap LP tokens also succeeded, I believe. Second polls now, I'm pretty sure they did. Yep, they all passed. So I don't think we're seeing them this week. We'll see them in an executive coming soon. Also in this week's executive, or tomorrow's executive, we're going to see the core unit budget distributions for June. We're also going to see an increase to the global debt ceiling to resolve some of the issues we had over the last couple of days minting DAI. And we're also going to do some final Liquidations 2.0 migrations, which I'm sure protocol engineering can tell you more about in a moment. So I think that covers the kind of official governance things in terms of GovAlpha, and so our core units. We've been doing a couple of things recently. There's a forum post which I will link to in a second. But to sort of do a 3-point kind of update of things that happened in the last week. So the Foundation front-end team have done a UX design for delegation, which we've seen and kind of signed off on. So we're seeing movement there, which is awesome. Big thanks to Tiago for producing those. We've set up the GovAlpha multisig fully. The kind of spending limits and allowances are set up for the pause proxy, and we sort of set up the we sort of done the sort of test transactions and things we need to do to be confident that that's all working. The other main point is that sort of onboarding plans are going fairly well as well. There'll be a forum post in the forum in a couple of days, expect, which kind of covers some of the positions which we're hoping to fill in GovAlpha and sort of what sort of things they involve. So yeah, moving onwards incrementally. All right, I think that covers my governance updates. So let's pass it over to Eli, who's going to give us forum at a glance this week, I think.
Thank you. Hello guys, my name is Eli. I'll be doing forum at a glance for you this week. The link is in chat, so feel free to follow along. A 3-point summary. There's currently 4.7 billion DAI in circulation. The system surplus buffer is at 39.6 million DAI, and the total value locked in Maker is $9.1 billion. On to announcements, there are 2 new posts that are up on the Foundation blog, one on smart contract wallets and another one on community development, so feel free to go check them out. Active discussions, we have one by Long for Wisdom, who starts a discussion around existing and or needed governance-related documentation. Another one is by Tomek, who points out the need for a data insights core unit to aggregate and present on-chain data for the improvement of the Maker ecosystem. And the last one is by Derek, who presents a bird's eye view of the layer 2 ecosystem and the various opportunities for Maker within it. Seeking consensus, we have one signal request by Aaron, who is running a poll to burn the 84,000 MKR recently transferred from the Maker Foundation, and another one by Aaron looking to add price stability modules for new stablecoins. A signal request by Sam is seeking consensus on adjusting parameters of one of the Uniswap LP vaults. Next up, Money Supply is suggesting adjusting the desk parameter to account for various recent development. And last but not least, the parameter proposal group has put forward a set of parameter changes for various vaults. So that's it for me. Please go ahead and vote in those signal requests and on-chain polls. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Eli. Does anyone have any questions for, I guess, me or Eli about anything governance related, GovAlpha related, or forum related, I suppose? Okay, looks like we may be good. All right, so with that, we'll move on to protocol engineering. Chris, do you have an update for us this week? Or Derek, is it this week?
I think I'm stepping in for Chris today. So yeah, everyone, hi. I'm Derek from Protocol Engineering Core Unit. Long, I think you covered off the liquidations 2 items. So of course, last week LP tokens. And yeah, I also want to shout out to the JS team for their work on the liquidations.mixDAO front end. All the LP tokens are up on that. So if there are liquidations, you'll see them there. This week's executive, like you alluded to, Long, yeah, we've got the 500 million global debt ceiling increase. There's a forum post which I can link you guys to here if people want context. And there's a second link there as well, which is the second point you alluded to, which is the architectural debt cleanup. And that's referring to moving stable coins from flippers to clippers. So basically what we're doing here is making sure that I have a summary in the in that link that I sent there that I posted earlier today. I don't think there's been any conversation, but basically the bottom line here is that we're keeping liquidations turned off by disabling the Clipper contract, but it's mostly a move around removing architectural debt so that we don't have to maintain the old contracts and that everything is now forward on the new liquidations 2.0 contract. So it just keeps our house in order a little bit better than having different collateral types split across different contracts. So hopefully that's all clear, but feel free to ask any questions if they arise. The other stuff that's been happening this week has been around layer 2 work. So we've been talking to Optimism. Chris and the team are in the process of upgrading the DAI Optimism bridge to the new Optimism ERC20 bridge standard. And we're also working on them and other layer 2 initiatives with regards to token bridge standards and improving them and trying to align on a common standard, which hopefully will move us forward in the same sort of direction. We've also started work with some auditors, and we hope to have that work kind of continuing for the rest of the month. We've also had a discussion with Arbitrum, so we're working on the DAI Arbitrum bridge. And interestingly enough, we also had an exploratory discussion with Starkware regarding Starknet. So we're hoping to continue those discussions with them. And as you saw from the forum post last week, we've also got a backlog story with regards to setting up the risk framework. So that's something we're trying to align on, sort of technical risk, economic risk across L2s, So I'm hoping to share some news with you guys on that soon as well. The only other thing I have to raise is the smart contract technical assessments. Last week, we had the centrifuge real world assets, which are managed by MIPS 22, but interfaced with the Maker protocol through MIPS 21. That was for Tunify, People's Company, Harbor Trade Credit, and Console Freight. And then today, thank you, Sam. You did the review on the SushiSwap LP pairs. So I think that's Aave ETH, Wi-Fi ETH, Link ETH, and I think that's the three. But we're still waiting on the MasterChef V2 deployment in order to launch the Sushi Join adapter. So still some work to do there, but I think they're the big topics, headlines at the moment. Sam, Brian, if you guys have anything else to add, please feel free to jump in, or if people have questions, feel free to ask.
No questions, but I just wanted to sort of say the write-up you did on L2s I thought was really good. And I think everyone in the community appreciated it a great deal. So yeah, thanks and great work on that, I think.
Well, thank you.
Awesome. All right, let's move on to oracles then. If there are no other questions.
Cool. Yeah, so yesterday we had a launchpad session for the Oracle's core unit. So I think that that went rather well. Lots of interesting questions. So you can find a recording. I believe the recording is up by now, and I'll end up posting a link in the corresponding MIP threads as well for the core unit. Looking on the more on the governance side, excuse me, we have a proposal from Yearn to get whitelisted on the Uni, Link, Aave, and Comp OSMs. They want to set up some more delegated vaults, essentially where their users would, provide them Uni, Link, Aave, or Comp. Yearn would borrow DAI against those and manage those positions kind of actively, and then use the DAI to earn yield for the users. So it's the same contract that they've been using for that they've already been using for ETH, Bitcoin, and Wi-Fi. So these polls will go up next Monday, and we should have them in the exec the following Friday. Yeah, other than that, I think this was rather a quiet week. I don't think there's much new in the Oracle world.
Great, thanks, Nick. Any questions for Nick or anything about oracles? Great. Let's see then, risk next. Pretty much, do you have a risk update for us?
Yeah, so few updates from our side. We posted another 3 Sushi LP evaluations last week, and we will do a final one soon. And this one will be Sushi ETH, Sushi LP pair. So as I said last week, we'll also cover X Sushi as a new collateral. And if you notice, we suggested only 1 million debt ceiling per each pair, and we'll suggest increasing it as soon as we have a week or so of testing. So you should soon expect a higher debt ceiling similar to Uni LPs, or potentially even higher, depending on the demand really. Parameter proposal group, which I'm part of, also made a post about newly proposed rates and debt ceilings for the month of June. So TLDR is that we proposed decreasing stability fees a bit more drastically this time, partially because we want to boost DAI supply from other collaterals because of the increased USDC exposure, but also because crypto market rates decreased actually for the second consecutive month in both the DeFi and CeFi. And if Maker wants to remain competitive, we should follow those rates. Another suggestion was to change depth ceiling instant access module parameters for all wall types, which will allow for more frequent depth ceiling increases. And it was also proposed to finally increase depth ceiling of ETB to 300 million, but with one condition, to change auction parameters for ETB, which we did. On the same day, I also posted another proposal, which was to actually shorten the auction duration, so the expected auction duration of ETB vaults from the current 40 minutes to 20 minutes. So the idea here is to lower the market risk in auctions, which is a bit higher for lower collateral vaults such as ETB. And then at the same time, we also proposed increasing auction throughput for all ETH vault types, because we could potentially see higher exposure on ETB and ETC, where only 1% stability fee was proposed. So those two exposures could increase, and the current auction throughput might be a bit too low. And then lastly, we're also looking for different solutions regarding institutional vaults and the proper setup there. I think Nadia might speak about it, but so Nadia from Growth Core Unit, she will, I think, soon make a post or discussion points on this potential setup of institutional vaults. What's the best setup? And yeah, we've been also thinking a lot about it, so we'll provide some of the solutions that we thought about. So yeah, other than that, I think that's it from our side.
Perfect. Any questions for Prash? All right, moving swiftly on. Real world finance, Seb.
Yes. So on our side, we have 3 points. We will push the governance. We'll push the 4 centrifuge collaterals on the governance pool on Monday. Those were delayed last week, but they will be published on Monday. We are still working a lot on the trust structure in regard to success, but also with other collaterals, and defining what would be the best trust structure. So we are still in the process of hiring some law firms, but we are making some progress here. So we will have some good names. And the last point is that I have published the MakerDAO May financial statement earlier today, and we will discuss that later in the call. If you have some questions, happy to answer.
All right, let's move on to growth. I believe we have Mariano doing the update this week. That's correct, right?
That's correct. Thanks, Long. This week we've been working really hard with the Polygon people to have a shared list of implementations that they have, and that we can work together on some actions with their partners. You can see I left in the chat the graphic of the other blockchains and the DAI situation there. We can see a trend of DAI from BSC getting eaten by Polygon, by DAI Polygon. And we are seeing this on the amount of partners that they are integrating Polygon. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. And then from the start of the week, we have this new wallet in Argentina. It's called Bitera. It's a DAI only wallet. That it's a really good wallet. It's really capable to compete with Mercado Pago. Mercado Pago is the biggest wallet in Latin America, and right now they are starting to expand to other countries, right? Such as, well, Peru, Colombia, Chile, and Venezuela. They wanted to be like the DAI hub for Latin America, because they also implemented Binance Chain. They will implement Polygon and some others blockchain that uses DAI. So this is good also for part of our strategy on DAI on other blockchains and soon obviously on other layer 2s. Thanks.
Great, thanks very much, Mariano. Yeah, that's super interesting about like Polygon, I guess DAI on Polygon overtaking DAI on BSC. That's cool. Yeah, thanks. Any questions for Mariano?
Hey, yeah, Mariano. I was listening to a podcast this week, and actually, Matt just posted that Genesis is doing DAI as an acceptable tradable asset, and he kind of took a cheap shot at DeFi. I forgot the guy's name, saying that when we liquidate vaults, or not just Maker, but anybody who gets liquidated, you don't get a warning. In other words, like you don't get a phone call and say, "Hey, man, you got an hour to get liquidated." I was wondering if your team, like with your relationships with companies like Genesis or Nexos or whatever, et cetera, is that something you guys are doing? Like reaching out to them and say, "Hey, man, you're down to like 155% collateral ratio, and maybe you should, top up." Is that something you guys are doing? Like, how does that work?
There's two ways. We have, let's say, quote unquote, institutional vaults. There's something that we are already discussing, but we have, let's say, big vaults. That's just, for example, Nexo. And they have people that's 24-hour, like constantly monitoring that type of vaults, right? But then we are working with Ethereum push notification service. It's a new protocol that is going to be developed. They are developing quite fast. And the idea is to have implemented that also on, let's say, like on a layer to let the users know when they have some sort of things to know, right? As for example, a change in price of the OSM or whatever thing that it could be interesting for those vault owners, right? This is we started this conversation past week, so it's all pretty new. Ethereum push notification service is also a new service, but I think that we need to, to classify what it's like a big or kind of institutional vault in which they have their own infrastructure to monitor the vaults, and other vaults that are maybe an anonymous vaults. Maybe they could be big, right? But they are anonymous and do not want to kind of be contacted or any kind of help.
Yeah, that actually was going to be my question. What if somebody's anonymous? So I guess you're saying that it's optional, right? Cool.
Yeah, it's optional. In fact, for example, part of the team right now is in Miami because a lot of the industry is there, and we are going to talk with some of these institutional persons that may be interested to get a quote unquote DeFi implementation with DAI on their services, and we need to develop the ideas. We need to gather all the requirements because it's like these clients have different requirements according to the country that they are, according to the types of clients and services that they are offering. It's like a very custom made thing that we need to do if we want to have them on board. And we are not, we cannot develop like a certain solution for certain clients. But again, we are in this phase that we are gathering all the information possible and trying to share with the community once we have something to see if we can reach an agreement on the type of services for this type of clients.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.
You're welcome, Frank.
All right, thank you both. Let's move on to SES then, perhaps. Juan, you have an update for us?
Can I get sharing right? I do have nothing, no? No.
Sure. Beside you. There you go.
Thanks. I was trying to do this to go actually faster, but maybe it actually backfired. All right, I'll try to be quick so we have time for the fun stuff. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so quick note from us. I mean, we just started, but some things that we're getting done already. The Project X-Ray has launched. For those that don't remember what it is, I think my camera is covered. It's about talent onboarding funnel. So Lenka is working on that. We're also working with one of the 2B core units about talent and getting the right people in the right places. And dog food is about our own experience in setting the core unit. So ideally we get to document everything for other core units that want to come and set their own core unit and learn from our own mistakes. Then we have the office hours set already by Andy. So come join us if you have any questions about SES or anything that we are working on or that you think that we should be doing. Drop by and we'll be happy to answer you. And then yesterday we had the auditors call for the first month, where we reviewed our forecasts and we're going to do the transfers very soon. Coming soon, we have the LexMaker series. So that's something which I'm really excited about. It's it's this series about regulation, IP licenses, anything that's that has to do with legal, since Layer 0 and Astrogator are going to be doing a lot of things regarding that. So please check the in the forum. I think Pablo has already posted the agenda, so make sure to save the date. We will start with the first one next week. And the other things that we've been working on is setting up OKRs, which we'll try to make public sooner than later, and then to improve our SES portal to make sure that people can actually find the things we're working on. Moving to the incubation program, starting this month, we have the D-Talent core unit, which is what I was mentioning about recruiting. So if your core unit has any needs, please reach out. And the other incubation core unit that's starting, it's the DAX, which is, I think, decentralized UX. So it has to do with interfaces for governance. Then we are talking with other potential to be core units. Some of them are super exciting. So we hopefully have more news about that soon. Moving on to the D-Talent core unit, as I was saying, for example, SES is looking for a data analyst, and I know already that Theo has been reaching out different core units, and some guys have been reaching out to him to make sure that we have the job descriptions out there, and we're already getting some really good candidates. So if you'd like to, or if you have any needs, please reach out to him. He'll be happy to help you. Regarding our grants program, we are working on setting up the program, and we have one grantee that is almost confirmed. We will have some news about that relatively soon, hopefully next week, and it will be to start in July. Again, if you think that you have an idea that can help Maker grow 10x or more, please reach out and we can discuss about this. Regarding the larger or the broader Maker community, as Nick mentioned yesterday, he presented his Oracle core unit and the vision. It was really interesting. So I encourage everyone to go and watch the video and see how the oracles could become a really crucial part of Maker and even a really big entity on its own. So really excited about that. Next week we'll have Kat representing strategic marcoms and the modifications that they've been working on. So that agenda is to be published soon. As I was mentioned in the beginning, we have the LexMaker series. The first session, it will be the DAI Foundation and the Maker IP. So this is pretty much the board members of the DAI Foundation, and they will explain in this call how to safeguard Maker IP, the overview of the assets under management, current licenses, guidelines, operations, budget. So yeah, we encourage everyone to join us. I think it's going to be really exciting to start working in that direction. And the following week, we will have Stefan from Gnosis presenting their MIPS application for collateral onboarding. So looking forward to that one as well. And as always, we are in our Discord, which is discord.ses.maker.network. We're making everything public on our drive, and we try to maintain this MakerDAO network page, which is not as successful as we would like, but we're working on it. Yeah, I don't know if there are any questions. Not even Frank. All right. So thank you, everyone.
All right, thanks, Juan. So, what have we got next? Right, now we're on to MIPS. So is that David doing the MIPS update this week? It doesn't look like David's here. All right, not sure who's supposed to be doing the MIPS update this week, so maybe we'll come back to that in a little bit. For now, let's move on to DAI Foundation. Soren, are you?
Righty along. Can I? Yeah. First of all, very happy to be here. Can I get the sharing access?
Yes.
Because I'm also a slides guy, and yeah, again, really excited to be able to start engaging on DAI Foundation with the community. This is an appetizer because yeah, you have a full call with a lot of other stuff. But next Wednesday, we are really hoping to host a call dedicated to go more in the depth about DAI Foundation, where the full board will be. They are also present on this call on the DAI Foundation board. Besides me, you probably know Wouter and Jacek, but we also do have Payam, who is a lawyer in Denmark, and Hans Henrik Hofmeier, who is Chief Operating Officer in a company called Coinify. And we really look forward to, yeah, get some more awareness about the purpose of DAI Foundation. So let me share some slides here, and please speak up because when I'm sharing, I can't see you. And now I'm just, let's see, taking a chance. Oh, I need to allow Zoom to share my screen first. Fuck. So why don't we do something different? Is there somebody with sharing privileges that can share the slides for me?
The host needs to enable sharing.
Someone should be able to share, like it's enabled for hosts and co-hosts.
Yeah, it's on my desktop. Instead of wasting your time, if somebody would fire up these slides I just shared, that would be a great help. Yep, thanks, Wouter.
Sure. Let me give you permissions, Wouter.
And apologies for that. So all right. So yeah, we only have limited time, so I'll dive right into it and ask some questions that are key to why DAI Foundation exists. So let's get the next slide and say the first question is, what if, say, somebody launches a coin on some other blockchain and calls it DAI? With the current set of users we're seeing in DeFi now, a lot of people, they don't really go and look in the underlying protocols and figure out whether this actually is DAI. And as we want to also get more and more adoption, we also must anticipate that a lot of users aren't really able to see if this DAI is legit. So there is a real danger that somebody uses the trust of the DAI brand to scam users, and clearly, if somebody does that, that will hurt the trust and adoption of real DAI. So that's one kind of issue we have out there. If you can take the next one, Wouter. Another thing is on the thing that, yeah, it's really important the protocol is open source, and with all that investment that has been in the Maker protocol software, what if somebody takes it and really use it as for purposes that goes against the principles of MakerDAO? And yeah, that would mean they would breach the open source licenses we have on the software, but it's really hard to do anything about it if the copyright to that software is scattered among a lot of different contributors. So there really also is a need to kind of be able to kind of go and have some concerted action if somebody, yeah, uses the software for something that really isn't according to the principles of MakerDAO. And then a third question, which is obviously more a niche thing, but much worse if it happens. We just saw the scaling core unit talking about 10xing Maker. And as we get more and more collateral locked into the protocol, it also becomes more and more attractive for an attacker. So what if we happen to be in the situation that there is a governance attack, we end up with forks of the protocol, and the attackers actually through governance is able to control the Maker and DAI trademarks. So they're able to brand this malicious fork as the legit one. That is also an issue. So there are some very specific issues, but anyway, also issues that needs to be done. So what's needed? Yeah, first of all, for the first one, we need to have a recognized owner of the trademarks that can go out there and defend them. For the software, then yeah, the copyright must be defendable, and that means it must not be scattered across a lot of different people, because it's just too cumbersome, too expensive to really get the opportunity to have any concerted action. And then finally, on the last point, yeah, if the trademarks are under direct control of governance and governance actually is taken over by a malicious party, then they would also control the trademark. So there must be another way to keep control of the trademarks while MakerDAO, the public service MakerDAO, still can utilize the trademarks to the fullest extent. And yeah, please, next slide. So the DAI Foundation, its purpose is actually to provide solutions for these issues here. It's created to safeguard the very few things of the Maker protocol that cannot be decentralized. That's the IP, the trademarks, the software, the domains, and so on. And it's also an independent legal entity which cannot seek profits and only serve a very, very narrow mandate, which is to protect this. From a practical point of view, it's created in Denmark, which has, yeah, a very strong tradition of independent non-profit organizations where it has been, yeah, accepted for centuries. The DAI Foundation, even though it has been very low-key, has actually existed for some time, and it was created as part of Maker Foundation's bootstrapping of the protocol. So yeah, that's the status here. And the mandate, the full preamble is quite long, but in a nutshell, it is really, again, to assume ownership of certain intangible assets, notably the trademarks, to assure they're used solely in line with the principles that governs the Maker protocol, and to maintain, develop, and communicate the MakerDAO system and its capabilities. So it is indeed very, very specific, but nonetheless also very important in my point of view. And if you are then are thinking, okay, but how is this made operational? Then it is really our aim on the board to make sure that even while we protect these things that cannot be decentralized, we're not taking them and putting them in a black box and putting them into some dark cellar, but we really want to make sure that for all legitimate purposes that there are unhindered use of the Maker trademarks. And the first step towards this is actually our trademark policy. There is a link for it here, and you're welcome to go in and check it out. And we are clearly working to kind of have more documents and processes for how we will make the assets available to the community. And then, yeah, we can have the next one. So that really was just an appetizer for a deeper dive where we talk about what our plans are, talk about the history, talk about how we see that we really can provide access to all these assets without any unnecessary barriers. Please do come to a call next Wednesday. I still need to have somebody help me put it into the Make a Public calendar, but then it will be available, and we do hope a lot of you will come next Wednesday where we can dive deeper into DAI Foundation. And we do also have a website which has the very, very bare information about the DAI Foundation, but you can see a little bit more who's on the board and stuff like that on that website. So yeah, thank you. And if there's time for any questions, we're very happy to take them.
Yep, got a little bit of time spare, so if anybody does have immediate questions, feel free to ask.
Hey, Soren, is there a possibility that you are going to expand the foundation one day to the United States? That's part one. Part two, when it comes to intellectual property and the types of intellectual property law, so what jurisdiction would come into play when it comes to DAI? Like, so if I was in Asia and I wanted to create, Y DAI or zero DAI or something, what's to stop me there when it comes to IP law?
Yeah, we do have the trademark registered in a number of geographies, including China, Singapore, Japan, for some of the trademarks, also Hong Kong, besides Europe and the US. So it really is really, I don't think that it will make any difference where the foundation actually is located according to how the IP protection is done. It is a question about going through and having the trademarks and the other assets you want to protect properly registered with the in the different jurisdictions.
Okay.
And from my point of view, we do have that.
Okay, so there's no advantages to setting up a foundation in Wyoming or Delaware whatsoever.
No, and I would say it's actually quite cumbersome and very expensive to set up a non-profit foundation. So yeah, that's not something I would recommend to do more than necessarily.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm guessing a lot of this is going to be covered in your later meeting, but maybe you could sort of briefly touch on how like domains will be managed, I guess, by the DAI Foundation.
Yeah, first of all, it's not like we have all the answers, so we are also really looking to engage. We don't even know all the questions, so we're very humble and want to engage. And again, we want to kind of create it like unhindered access. Personally, I see one way to manage the domains could be that for each subdomain, then whoever got to post content on that subdomain had to be a governance approved entity. So it simply is, either through a core unit MIP or through a governance vote, a particular unit is kind of getting governance approval to post content, and then through configuring that subdomain, we simply could point it to that content provider that then they get to use that subdomain, if that kind of makes sense what I'm saying here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So you're saying like the DAI Foundation would manage the top level domain, and then the subdomains would kind of be
we would, or TechOps would for us actually keep full control of the DNS, but just point, say vote.makeadao.com to whatever site that the core unit that builds the vote.makeadao.com front end is deploying to.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but I guess that's just one, let's say, scenario of many. And I think what we have been working for in the DAI Foundation is also to run these types of war games where you need to figure out what could happen, which you don't want to have to happen, but could happen. So I think it's important to understand DAI Foundation also as a form of insurance. You don't want to use it, but the day that you have to use it, what could be the scenario? And I think that's also where we want to ask the entire community, bring forward those cases so we preempt them, so we discuss them before they happen. So when they happen, then we are prepared as an organization. So I think that would also be good for our next session, would be to bring forward some of those, let's say, cases that we could run some war games on to figure out, well, what would we do as an organization? And is it something that the organization should do anything about? So there's a lot of conversation to be had.
Yeah, it's true. Even though our mandate is very specific and narrow, there is actually a lot to discuss around it. And I'm aware that what is the kind of a big question in the community now is yeah, how do we get practical access to some of these assets? So we certainly are open to discuss anything, and look forward to see a lot of you next week.
Great. Yeah, I think I'll make sure I'm there.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
All right. So if there's no more questions, we'll maybe move on. Great. So, Seb, do you want to run us through the May financials?
Yeah, sure. Can I share my screen?
Yep.
No. Oh, no, I can. Okay. So May 2021. Everything is awesome, like every month, at least those last few months. So we have achieved to have 23 million of net income last month, which is quite an improvement versus the previous one, so April. And it was due to all our business lines. So the lending side is up 29%, trading income is up as well, liquidation as well, and workforce expenses are up as well, but not so much that it's making anything. As the only thing that is down is the maker price. I already say that 2 months ago, I think. What can we say? So as you can see on May 2021, the bar of the income statement is quite huge, and it's quite. But if you look only on at the green part, the net interest income, it's a linear path for the last 6 months. And what is the big difference here is net liquidation income. I will not tell you that there was quite a crash in the crypto markets, and we benefited from it, hopefully. Looking at the lending business, so I changed this slide a little bit compared to last month. So I'm not presenting ETH only, but all the ETH related vaults. So now that's more representative of all we have as interest income from ETH. And now we can see that the dependency on ETH is now 84%, up from 80% last month. And that's the biggest dependency we had on ETH since early 2020. So that's quite a concern, at least I think, that we are a multi-collateral protocol, but there is only one that is super important. So the rest is not an anecdote, but not super important. Except for Bitcoin, which is still the second one. The yield are a bit above what was done last month at 6.2%, but that's mainly because I use the average yield is done by using the end of the loans at end of the last period and the end of May divided by 2. And obviously there was an increase in the loans, then a big crash at the end of the period. So that's why it seems a bit, it seems to be an increase, but there is not. And the loan balance dropped a lot because obviously people are deleveraging into a crash. Regarding the trading business, so mainly the conversion from USDC to DAI and the opposite. As there was a crash in the market, people deleveraged a lot on the maker vaults. And then as the demand of DAI was constant, some arbitrageurs put some USDC into the PSM to generate some DAI and get a small return for that. So the PSM was increased from 1 billion to, all the stable coins were increased from 1 billion to a bit above 2 billion. The difference between the PSM and the inventory of the stablecoin are the legacy stablecoin vault, so PAX, USDCA, and GUSD. So that generated a lot of profit, a bit above 1 million, which is quite an improvement since the beginning of the year, actually. It was the biggest month, and this month only was bigger than all the previous months of the PSM. And on the liquidation business, we made almost 10 million of income thanks to liquidation. There was only 2 liquidations that weren't 100% successful, so everything ran smoothly. And you can see that we made more income from those liquidations than in March 2020 we lost, than what we lost in March 2020. So that was quite interesting because obviously the base of assets is bigger. Speaking of assets, so this is the asset side of the balance sheet of Maker. As you can see that the crypto loans are decreasing a little bit, but we are increasing the asset size, the balance sheet size of MakerDAO, and the difference is due to what I call liquidity reserves, which are the stablecoin vaults and the PSM. And currently the DAI, at least at the end of the month, was backed by 48% by USDC and other stablecoin, which is quite a concern if you are following a little bit crypto Twitter, but we are working on that, as you know already. Regarding the stablecoin usage, it was quite interesting to see that the stablecoin on-chain volume spiked a lot in May. So there was a huge activity on-chain for stablecoins, for all stablecoins, but the big winner of the crash was USDC, which just doubled the activity. And if you look at a market share, so USDC gained a lot of market share. BUSD, interestingly, decreased a little bit of market share. I have no idea why, because it was increasing and taking the market share of USDT for months now, and then it dropped a little bit. And for DAI, we are still, let's say, flat or slowly improving at 13%. On the risk side, thanks to the fact that a lot of users have closed their vault, and as we assume that USDC is not a risk regarding what we call the CET1 ratio, so the core equity ratio, Tier 1 ratio, we are more safe than ever because we have a leverage ratio, meaning the equity divided, the equity divided by the assets is a bit below 1%, but increased a little bit. And if you would look at the CET1 ratio, which is quite the same metric, but weighted by the risk of all the assets. So all stablecoins are zero risk, except obviously USDT. ETHB is 2 times the risk, and ETH is now 0.5 times the risk. And you can see that so this metric, CET1, is now up above 1.5%, which basically means that we can lose 1.5% of all our loan exposure, and we should be fine. No, Greg, it's not that, that's about it. Yeah, it's less risky as we onboard more stablecoin if the rest stays the same. But obviously there is a tail risk on having 50% of USDC exposure. Wouter, so the details of the weight are here on the bottom of the slide. So 0 times for stablecoins, 2 times for ETHB, 0.5 times for EC, and the rest is 1 times.
Yeah, my question was, why is ETH, for example, 2? Is that just
that's just a decision right now. What we plan to do, maybe it will be pre-merge to see what is the real risk, but we need a strong study on that. And there is no literature to say what is the risk of having a crypto-backed loan, because there's no one that in the traditional world.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
And on the maker valuation, so the price decreased a little bit. The recurring earning yield is now quite high again. The equity per MKR token is high, is increasing as well at $44.44 per or DAI per MKR token. So this is what we could distribute to MKR token holders if we wanted to shut down the whole MakerDAO project. And what else can we say? Yeah, so currently the recurring earning yield, which is what we are making as income if we annualize the last month divided by the maker price, is quite high, but you need to take in account that we might decrease the stability fees maybe next month, at least if the MKR token holders follow the proposal of the MOMC committee. So that might change the picture as well, because less revenues mean less income, means lower recurring earning yield. And lastly, to focus first on real world asset, we have now a little less than 2 million of real world asset, still mainly on New Silver. And the liquidity pools have decreased a lot because the rates or the rates on the lending pools are quite low now, or lower on Uniswap now, because there is now a Uniswap v3, which is taking quite of the transactions. And obviously, as there was a crash, people wanted to deleverage as well. So we are 24% decrease. And that is you can find the presentation in the forum or in the governance and risk channel in Rocket Chat. And if you have questions, happy to answer them.
Should we include LUSD in the overview, like the market share of stablecoins?
So I'm taking for this slide. It's taken from Dune Analytics that provide a way to have those, and Dune Analytics currently doesn't have LUSD in this table, because obviously there is a lot of transactions on chain, so you cannot just start to count every of those transactions easily.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
And yeah, LUSD is, last time I checked, it was 99% on a farm, on 2 farms. The liquidity pool and I don't remember the name of the reserve they use.
Stability pool, I think.
Yeah, right, stability pool.
All right. Any other questions for Seb? All right. Let's move on slightly then. So it looks like we're not going to have a proper MIPS update this week. This week is kind of like a gap week between the 2 monthly cycles anyway. So next week we'll have formal submission for June. So that'll be between the 7th and the 9th. So if you have a proposal which is an RFC, 9th of June is kind of your last day to submit for the June cycle. So keep that in mind, anyone that's planning submissions. All right, so I think that brings us to the end of our agenda, so we can move into the sort of discussion and QA portion of the call. If anybody has sort of questions or issues that they want to discuss or bring up. Obviously, USDC is on all of people's minds right now, so if anybody wants to start a discussion around that, something we can do. Yeah, please chime in if you have any thoughts. I guess maybe it's worth discussing the Maker Open Market Committee proposal, right? So that's the one that changes the stability fees, debt ceilings, etc. I think we proposed 1% on ETH, and I think it was 3% on ETH A, if I remember correctly.
3.5.
3.5, my bad. So yeah, does anybody think those are too high, too low? I don't know, thinks we should be making other changes? Thank you, Peyton. Yeah, there's a link to the proposals in the sidebar there.
I'm curious if some of the methodology maybe could be shared. Like obviously we're looking at other people's rates, but we're not using them as our own benchmark. So in terms of the magnitude of how much they were lowered, was was there any formula or any basis that could be explained in terms of how that decision was reached?
Just to tag on to that same question, is there an objective to how much new DAI is targeted to be minted by lowering those rates?
Yeah, so we've got let's see, what, like three or four people on the committee in the call. So anybody feel free to speak up. Or maybe some dropped. I know some stuff.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I guess it's it's mostly looking at the competitive rates and sort of adapting to make us the most competitive option in the space. So right now, other secondary lending markets are more competitive than us, and so these rate changes are a move to counter that. So we're always the best deal.
Yeah, and like to speak a little bit to the methodology question, like the idea is always to kind of balance that against sort of like risk and DAI supply and stuff, right? So in this case, obviously DAI supply is maybe the most important factor given the recent increase in USDC backing. So I think that was kind of like the primary driver for the changes this in June, or this proposal. So I think, Matt, you asked if there was any like sort of fixed amount of like DAI that was targeted. I don't think there was. We didn't sort of discuss like sort of hard numbers of amount of DAI we like kind of would want to be minted. It's kind of difficult to sort of target that in like effectively, right? The kind of hope is that if we position ourselves to sort of less than competitors, then we get some level of migration, or we get sort of potentially get more leverage seekers, right, using Maker over other protocols.
Yeah, and potentially attracting new users who previously haven't taken out loans via the fairly big reduction in FC as a little bit more of an experiment.
No, I'm curious about Uni, for instance. Like I see it was one of the ones reduced, but perhaps not like super aggressively. Just in terms of market share, we have an extremely small amount of Uni on the books, and would definitely like to see that be going up more.
Since here, maybe Pramesh or Seb can comment on this one. Is Pramesh still here?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the question was why the uni fee was reduced so heavily. Was basically because the risk is pretty low. So uni is very liquid token, and the current exposure is actually pretty low compared to the allowed exposure that we calculate. So from the risk side, we could go lower, and yeah, in general, all those tokens which could have rates reduced more aggressively, we did that from risk perspective. From a competitive perspective, if you look at DeFi rates currently, everything is really, really low. So if we go to Compound and DAI, rates are much lower than they were a month or 2 months ago. And then if you put on top the incentives, it's actually hard to compete. So and I was just looking before, I think if you borrow DAI from me to DAI, I think like net rate that you pay is might be even less than 1%. At some points you even get rewarded. So it's really hard to compete. We basically need to go, yeah, really low.
We still do have an advantage in terms of large amounts of borrowing, as well as predictability of fees. They can spike on Aave and Compound based on market conditions unexpectedly.
I think one of the other things we did sort of discuss but didn't end up sort of proposing explicitly was like fixing the rates on some of these vaults for some period of time, right? So I think we discussed this mostly around ETH, right? Like sort of fixing the ETH rates in the hope of like attracting users who are maybe not leverage seekers, but are seeking sort of credits in a more sort of sustainable way, right? But they potentially can't do that unless they have confidence that the rate's going to be fixed for a period of time. So that might be something that's worthwhile for the community thinking about more generally, right, outside of that group, because it kind of represents a fairly, well, not a significant change of direction, right, but like it's a thing we haven't done before.
Yeah, and here perhaps it's worth mentioning that it's also a double-edged sword. So we could see a lot of ETH refinance to ETH. So last time I checked, how many of the well-collateralized vaults could migrate to ETH just because the rate is so, might be really low now. And you could see 1 billion, out of 1.6, they could easily migrate to ETH because their collateralization ratios are really high, above 250 to 300. So yeah, this affects this affects revenues, and it doesn't add anything to DAI supply, which is the main goal. So we always talk about this as well.
All right, super controversial topic. So should we speak about pros becoming a governance facilitator next?
Yeah, we certainly can do. It's always fun to embarrass pros.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess does anybody have any sort of comments or questions, or I guess about pros becoming facilitator? Or potentially becoming
yes.
a facilitator? You vote yes, okay. You're not sure how controversial a debate this is going to be. Fun.
I think pros has our full support.
Yeah, we'll sort of see how that sort of comes out in the June cycle, right? But yes, I'm hopeful that that everyone will support pros. All right, maybe that exhausts the current sort of discussion topics the people here. Maybe we can take a look at the anonymous question box again, Peyton. Have we had any interesting questions or statements or comments or questions or anything come in there?
Yeah, we did get one. We didn't get a chance to get it last week due to the busyness of it. But it was basically kind of talking about the Oracle performance again during the crash. I guess that's what, 2 weeks ago now? Yeah. Basically wondering what would have happened if the ETH price had continued to crash while our OSM, is an hour behind. And this was also pointing out some price fluctuations compared to like other exchange oracles. But I think we kind of discussed that aspect of it in a previous call, but might be worth talking about in terms of like how the protocol defends itself or what actually takes place should like prices keep dropping during that hour to the point where we're not able to recover the debt of the vault. There's also a suggestion of us maybe using Chainlink oracles if we want to get Nick fired up and in the comp.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sort of simple overview is that, the kind of falling price auctions and such kind of try and hopefully reduce faster than the actual market price and do clear the debt above before the protocol loses money. Obviously, this isn't guaranteed, but in general, as long as as long as the majority of auctions end successfully, because of the penalty in aggregate, the protocol should end up ahead, unless there's lots of faults which have been liquidated and the price continues dropping very to an extreme level. So maybe it is worth noting that the OSM is like a kind of double-edged sword, right? Like it does make the protocol slower to update to market prices, but we've also kind of seen that it's a positive in attracting vault users to Maker, and it also defends against Oracle attacks, which is kind of the key reason it exists, right? Feel free to add anything if you like, Nick or Pramesh. But
yeah, I think you described it pretty well. There is the risk at auctions, right? So that's why we're now proposing to lower the auction duration for ETH. I've made the post about, if you want to make auctions clear faster, you have this delayed bids risks, right? And you could settle them lower, and there would be loss for either vaults or protocol. So, like, of course, ideally we'd want the auctions to settle the first minute, the price updates, but it's always risky. So I kind of think that we are going to be decreasing the settlement time, but we need to see really high keeper participation, and we need to be really sure this works well. So the first step is doing this for ETH. I imagine we can do the same for other collaterals, and then we can, shorten this duration, which is on top of the OSM delay, which can be 1 hour or even more at some points. But as Long said, yeah, this also has a lot of benefits. So I think on Sunday, I think it showed like 600 million should be liquidated, but then 50, 80 million of them, saved themselves because of the OSM. So these users probably like OSM. It saved us as well. So yeah, I think it's net positive still.
great, yeah, thanks for that summary, Pramesh. Yeah, as President said in the sidebar, there is an anonymous suggestion box if you have questions for people on this call but aren't able to attend or don't fancy speaking on the mic. There's a link to this in the agenda forum posts. The post is also just posted in the chat, so feel free to make use of that if you feel the need. Right, well, we're kind of on 20 past the hour, so we can maybe think about wrapping up if no one has anything else urgent or relevant they want to discuss. So last chance if anybody wants to bring anything up. All right, looks like we're all satisfied for today, so we'll wrap up a little early. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll be here again next week. So,
Thank
yeah,
you.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you.